program. We're going to record this part of the program so we can enjoy it over and over. It will also be put up on our website for people who are interested but couldn't make it here today. Pat, are we going to start the recording?
The recording's just been
Going.
starting.
Oh, well,
I don't know if you
should
heard
just
the
be
announcement.
quiet. Usually it asks, at home, it asks me. So our guest speaker today is James Heaton. He's the principal of the Branding Agency Tronvig. Tronvig has done impressive work with many nonprofits and cultural organizations. James is the youngest son of a radical preacher whose liberal church was in small-town Illinois, smack dab in the conservative Bible Belt. At 19, he journeyed to Asia, traversing northern Tibet, Thailand, and became a Theravada Buddhist monk. And he also lived in Kyoto, Japan, where he studied classical calligraphy under Master Amayuchi Kan. In 1996, here in New York, he founded the art magazine The Exhibitionist, which was distributed nationally, but shut down after only a year because too much effort had gone into the product and not enough into marketing. This failure inspired James to shift his career into marketing, where he's remained ever since. So it is with pleasure that I will share with us his insights on organizational alignment. Please welcome.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's good to start with failure. Failure was the initiation of this business. The last almost 30 years of doing this work has been, or could be described as, a litany of professional failures. If you fail like that, you actually learn enough, if you pay attention to those failures, to be useful. So that is essentially my qualification. My degree is in art history from Kyoto University. I have no professional qualifications for this work other than that sort of series of learning experiences that failure provided. Every project that we've taken on is both a success and a failure. The success parts are there and the organization benefits from them. The failure parts are there and we learn from them so that we can help the next organization. So I'm going to share kind of a deck to help me talk through this. Let's see. So, first item, right now, this organization is perfectly optimized for the results it's getting right now. So, if you're happy with everything the way it is, great. You don't need this process, you don't need this work, you don't need to do this. But if you want to do something, there's actually work that needs to be done both internally and externally. This is a marketing project. We throw around marketing as a word a lot. What is marketing? Anyone? What is marketing?
Raising awareness of a product or service.
Sure, well, I can repeat. Raising awareness of a product or service. Yes, that's good. What else? What is marketing?
Being able to tell people who you are and what you do.
Being able to tell your story, right? So that it has meaning. What is the intent? What is the purpose of marketing?
Help you achieve your corporate objectives.
help you achieve your business objectives, right? In this case, the business is partially the business of communicating value, the business of bringing in members so that they can learn and grow with you. What else?
Raising awareness of that product, service, or yourself.
Right, raising awareness of your product, your service, your offer, right? So I like to think of this in terms of value. My mentor in marketing is Peter Drucker, and to paraphrase him, he says, "No one buys what you sell. They buy what is of value to them." Now, we know what we do, what we offer is of value. We need to, marketing is our way of figuring out how to communicate that so that others will see it. And there's a gulf of understanding between the inside of an organization and the outside. And this is true of all organizations. It's particularly true of nonprofit organizations, which tend to be complex and nuanced, which is very difficult as a starting place for marketing. So let me go to the next question. So what is a brand? We talked about marketing. What is a brand? And yeah. The quality of your product, right? Okay, right. So good. What else? What else is a brand? Who you are, what you look like. Yes, your identity. What you bring. Yes. What else is a brand?
Maybe what you're known for, what you do.
Right. What you're known for, what you do, your reputation out in the world. Those are all true. Those are all parts of the brand. So those first things, what you look like, how you behave, the value you bring, those are things that you control internally. But your reputation, how you are viewed outside in the world, that's something that you can only influence, you can't control. Jeff Bezos has a wonderful definition of marketing. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room. Right? So the story that is being told about you without your direct influence or control. And we respond as human beings to stories. We write stories in our minds all the time. We tell stories to communicate. Stories are incredibly powerful. So what is that story? Is the story being told about us by others connected to us or who have heard about us the right story? That's the work. That's the connection between marketing and branding. So brand is that your reputation, your identity. Marketing is your vehicle through which you communicate that outside. So I have to go to Daniel Kahneman here. The late Daniel Kahneman won a Nobel Prize in economics, even though he was not an economist. He did a lot of research and a lot of thinking about sort of how we behave and why we don't respond to statistics and instead why we respond to stories. And one of the realizations when I read Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow was that this is very instructive with relation to brand. So we have to recognize the way that human minds work, because at the end of the day, we're communicating to humans, we are humans doing this work. So there's this thing called System 1 and System 2. These are two modes of thought that humans spend their time in. And System 1 is where we spend 95% of our conscious time. System 1 is fast, it's efficient, it's largely automatic. It is used by us to make everyday decisions, and it's really error prone. It's very inaccurate, but it's very efficient, and our brains need efficiency. So this is where brands exist. They exist in System 1. So on the other hand, there's System 2, which is much more slow. It's conscious, it's effortful and much more accurate. System one is the realm that we like to operate in as an organization communicating with people. For instance, the platform, if it's done well, is a system two activity. It's a place where we can influence people's thinking. We can modify conceptions that they have. We can open minds. None of that happens in system one, and that's where brand needs to operate. Brand has to work, and marketing has to work in a system one world. So these things that are there, all these things that we, as a congregation, the things that we like to do aren't possible until we get the system one part right to bring people through the door and get them started with the organization, to get them to visit, to get them to attend. So we have a tool that we're going to take you through that answers some really basic questions that we can get to the place, a degree of simplicity that will allow us for them to be effective, hopefully, in system one. What is the organization? How does it deliver value? Why should anyone care? What are your core values, and what is a single idea that people can have about the organization? So once we've got those answered, that can be kind of the core of our brand. Right now, there's a de facto brand. There's a brand that exists based on your history, based on your people's experience. It's out there. People create a brand story about you, whether you've helped to create it or not. People create it for themselves. So there is a brand for the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture. We'll actually, in our research, get a better understanding of what that de facto brand is, and whether it's accurate or not. It's important for us to understand how that's helping the project, and I'm assuming and back up for a second. For you, what's the most important outcome of the brand project that we're going to do? What do you want it to accomplish? Yes?
To grow the organization.
To grow the organization, yeah. Right, so that you can bring greater value to the community and the world. What else? What else do we want?
Become more visible.
To become more visible.
Knowledge.
Right, connecting to the first point, to become better understood and therefore able to have an impact. Anything else?
To have some shared purpose of why we come together that expresses ethical values of the world.
So internally, to have a shared sort of sense of why we do this and what value we bring, and to help attract others to be part of it. Precisely, that is a great description of brand work, right? So clarify for ourselves what we stand for, why we exist, why we matter, so that we can effectively communicate that out into the world, and through that attract others who share this and can join. There's an element of brand work that's frightening to some, and that is that you want your brand to both attract and repel. It should actually draw in those who align with you, and for those who are a poor fit for your organization, it should actually tell them that. So to confidently project who you truly are as an organization, as your statement at the beginning of platform does quite well, that's an aspect of a brand. People think that brands should be kind of universally attractive, but effective brands actually are not. They're very clear about who their target audience is and what they stand for in the world, and that's part of the work. So so the brand may be helping, it may be hurting. The ideal brand for an organization is singular, differentiated, and memorable. So these are easy points of contact for System 1 to sort of get an inkling of a brand. And what that System 1 brain does is it takes whatever little nub of information that it is given, and it tells a story automatically based on that. So it takes a tiny piece of information that comes to it from whatever source, say from a communication that you do or something that somebody says about you, and then they tell a story in their own mind. And if that story is headed in the wrong direction, that is not appropriate to sort of what you actually do, it's almost impossible for you to fix that story. You would have to literally like reach out as they're walking by on the street, grab them, drag them in, tie them to the chair, and make them sit through platform before you could correct that story that they've auto-told themselves in their mind. So your brand's job is to send them on the right path so that their automatic storytelling is in line with with the truth, really, with who you really are. So that if they start telling a story about you in their mind that is the right story, then you can build on that. You can take that and bring them through to sit for platform voluntarily. So this is the project to make sure that we've got the right simple story to be telling. And then for all of us to be able to use that, for it to be in our communications and our conversations about ethical culture. So there are things that get in the way of an ideal brand. Your brand should actually make a promise, and that promise should be true. In other words, you should be able to operationally, as an organization, deliver that promise, hopefully without a great deal of effort. And I want to sort of take you through some other sort of nonprofit organizational examples of work that we've done over the years. So about 10 years ago, we took on the National Museum of Women in the Arts. It was had a beautiful building in DC, and people thought it was your grandmother's museum, and they sort of collected art with works with women, and so they loved their building. So what's interesting about this brand, this is a sort of partially a visual brand story, their love affair with their building was actually hurting their ability to attract new members, new visitors. They wanted younger people to come. It was perceived as a stuffy old museum that had a bunch of fusty art by women from the Renaissance on. So we actually had to get rid of their beloved building in the visual identity, sort of, and move them from a place that looked like that. This is a book that they produced. This was the brand we created for them like 10 years ago, to at that time, much more sort of contemporary feeling thing. They behaviorally, operationally also changed the way the museum exhibited the kinds of content that they put out and the way they communicated about it. We built them a brand pyramid. And we did sort of the advertising over the years for all of this really cool stuff that they were producing. And one of the results was that over time, sort of at first, if you look at this chart, if we wanted to bring people into the museum, we had to spend a lot of money. So we spent money and then we got people. So the yellow line is the spend, and the blue bar is the attendance that results from that spend. So you see at the beginning, we spent a lot, we got the attendance. We spent less, we got less attendance. But over time, we no longer had to spend the money and we got the attendance, at some point even more than we'd ever gotten. So this is essentially the value of the brand. So the brand and the repeated kind of messaging based on the same core value proposition, in this case, to champion art by women, has this sort of yield over time. Brand work isn't immediate. The payoff isn't immediate, but you can see this is a sort of a concrete example of how it works. COVID sort of wrecked that. That's COVID there at the end. This is another chart. This is people's satisfaction with the experience of visiting the museum. Now, if you invite everyone, there are people that are going to come to the exhibition who are going to say, well, why did you invite me to that? I'm not really interested in that. So the brand focus that I mentioned earlier, the saying that this brand most has to attract those who are right for it, but also to say, for you, this probably isn't right. The result of that actually is, this is a score that's derived from people saying, how likely are you to recommend this experience to your friends and family? If somebody says, on a scale of 0 to 10, that the likelihood is a 6, which is somewhat likely, right? What does that mean in reality, behavioral reality? Anyone know?
They're being nice.
They're being nice. In fact, they're going to say negative things about you in the market. Someone who rates you a 6 is technically a detractor. And their story about you is about 3 times as powerful as a positive story. So this score is derived from only the 9s and the 10s. And all the 6s and belows are subtracted from that. And that's how you get this score. So 7 and 8 is meaningless. They will do nothing. So it's only the 9s and the 10s who will actually tell a good story about you. So this score is actually, the last score there is quite extraordinary score. That means that the vast majority of people who came to that exhibition gave it a 9 and a 10, and almost nobody a 6 or below. So this is, again, the effect of brand, making sure that the right people are hearing your story and coming to visit you. The result is growth in attendance and PR and all that other stuff. I'll skip this one. We did them. So, yes, here, Helen Keller came to us at a time when they had accrued a great deal of organizational complexity. And in the nonprofit world, it's important to understand that there is a conflict between the good and the effective. So nonprofits do many things that are good, but they do not always have the means to measure the effectiveness of what they are doing. And so there's tension exists between the good and the effective, and the good can persist for a very long time and be very ineffective. So in the case of Helen Keller, they had accrued all these different programmatic areas and become very confusing to the marketplace. And they had actually kind of lost their understanding of the value of the founder, Helen Keller, and how powerful her story was for the organization. So we simplified what the organization was about, and their brand idea, we sort of restored Helen Keller to the sort of the central position in the organization, and sort of built a system around that. The tagline was continuing her work, and you can sort of, this is like this whole sort of brand system which they still use today. So you, as a nonprofit organization, have natural sort of nuance and complexity built into the value that you bring. The discipline of marketing is to figure out which of all those different things is actually the most powerful story for us to tell, and then have the internal discipline to focus on that story and not to tell the other stories. Those stories can still be told in this room, but if you tell all those stories out there, you're just going to be unhearable, basically. You'll be invisible. So the more complicated your story is out in the world, the less audible it is. So this organization was a multi-billion-dollar healthcare organization here in New York, and they had all these different business lines that they had created. This one, for example, was about half their business. And we took that all away and simplified it to this one thing. So all of these complex offers and things that they did out in the world that brought value, we reduced to a single, in this case, customer-centric VNS Health. We renamed every business unit, every operational delivery mechanism, so that it all made sense from the customer's perspective. And that has made a significant difference for them. So I could sort of share other examples, but the point here is that we need to find which stories are most salient with our prospective member, which means we have to do the work of choosing who our target prospective member is, and then which of the possible stories that we could be telling is the right story to bring them through that door and get them to sit in the seat and an experience platform. And then the system 2 work that we need to do can begin. But we've got to have the discipline up front in order to bring that process into motion. I have one more that's kind of interesting. So here, what is the brand of libraries? What is the default, de facto brand of a library? Books. And shh. And late fees. See, all of those things were hurting them. So what we did was we took library out of their name. We actually, in this case, changed them to the tagline was a playground for curious minds, and we made them the Grand Forks Public Marketplace, the Grand Forks Public Concert Series, the Grand Forks Public Library, yes, and also the Grand Forks Public Planetarium. All of these things kind of disrupted the story people were telling themselves about what a library is and what a library does. So this is a good example of, well, what is the de facto brand that we need to replace with a powerful and effective brand which does a better job of telling a truer story about our offer. And that's that. I'll open it for questions.
Okay, quick sidebar. The Ethical Culture Society formed the the district nurse service, which was a free program of nurses that went into tenements and serviced people on the street. Now it is the Visiting Nurse Service of New York.
Which is now VNS Health.
Which is now VNS Health.
Yes.
I'd also just point out this year, Brooklyn Ethical Culture is 120 years old. And so internally, we've gone through many, many changes. And what James has said has made me very curious, is the story that's told outside an old story? from decades ago. Anyway, we're going to open it up now to questions. Anyone have any questions? Rebecca?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. So Rebecca, a very long time member alongside Fiona's family with children who are now in their 30s. Mid-career, I went and studied organizational change management.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to, I was like an advocate for change everywhere I was. No matter what circle I found myself in, I always wanted to see how things could do better. And I feel like I've brought that here, and it's in my bones now wherever I go. So this is fascinating and wonderful. Certainly our old building was something everybody knew. Still, that's like part of our image in the community, positive or negative. Usually that beautiful building I've been there for, and the things people are there for are not necessarily our service, it's what we hosted. A wedding, a party, a funeral, whatever. So people know the place, know what the place was physically, but didn't necessarily know what we do there.
Yep.
I feel like I joined because it was Brooklyn ethical culture. I didn't know it was a religion. And I think that's actually, people don't need to know that. Many people would not be impressed by that fact. Even that it's part of the American Ethical Union, it's more confusing when I say it's about Brooklyn and about how we have a culture of ethics and values. So I think those are some things to think about. But my question or the point of conversation over time with your consultancy was buried in one slide. And I'm trying to think how to say it, but you basically have to do what you say you are.
Yes, that's right.
And I think that that's a big challenge.
Yep.
Because our culture teaches us not to be very ethical, and there's so many ways that trickles out and down and up and around. How do we really prove we mean it?
Yep.
Which is changing our own internal ways. And so I'm really curious about that part, so that we don't become the butt of jokes.
So there's two.
Amazon turned up their smile or something.
Exactly. Yes. So there's two key elements to brand work. There's the stuff that most of that was focused on, which is how you express your value. But then the other side that's equally important is how that promise is operationally true. So whatever it is that you're promising out in the world, do you have the operational and behavioral capability to deliver that promise to whoever walks through the door? And that's often a matter of organizational change, right? So if particularly we make an aspirational promise, which often it's important for nonprofit brands to do, to say, I want to be able to do this. We're not 100% there, but we need to get there because that will make our value greater and make me feel better about the whole project. There is then an organizational change component, which is why in our brand pyramid we have core values, because the core values are essentially the guardrails that allow us to kind of keep improving, keep making the necessary adjustments so that we can get closer to that aspirational promise. I think most of the nonprofit organizational projects that we have worked on have had some aspiration in their brand, that their brand was not simply a reflection of their current reality, but was a reflection of the reality that they felt they needed to achieve in order to fulfill their objectives. And that, I can't pull up the slide now, but organizational change is also not quick, as you know. You have to undermine the status quo, move to the new position, and then build support for the new position. And in that process, there are three camps within the organization. There are those who want to see the change and are actively advocating for it. those who are consciously or unconsciously resisting that change and doing various things under their auspices to inhibit the process, and the largest group, the ones who are standing by to see what happens. And in the process of organizational change, what you need to do is to celebrate small wins as you make progress so that those bystanders can join in the project. So there's a whole process, as you know, of kind of getting the people who are sort of waiting to see who's going to win in this project to sort of join the side of progress. Does that answer your question?
Right, great question. Oh, I see, so many. I didn't notice who put their hand up first, so let's
Oh,
say.
I can tell you. We have
Oh, okay.
Tom, then
Tom,
Lujira, and then
Lujira,
Bert.
and Bert.
So Tom, if you'd like to share,
Pat, would you unmute, please?
Tom, I'm going to unmute you.
They both push the button at the same time.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, James, sorry I can't be with you in person. My wife and I have a cold or some such thing.
Tom, we can't hear you. Okay.
You can hear me or you can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, James, sorry I can't be with you in person. My wife and I have a cold or some such thing here. A couple of questions. One is that you mentioned you came from a clergy family, and I was wondering if you ever gave some thought to how you would brand the family church, and whether there are any lessons from that might apply to us. And then secondly, what about the role of incorporating ideas and models and services and branding approaches from other similar organizations around the country? Do you think that has a role in the process?
Absolutely. You want to look at, so I'll take the second one first. You want to use best practice. One of our projects as a company has been to bring best practice into the nonprofit sector from the for-profit sector. The for-profit sector uses brand very effectively for purposes that are less admirable than what the nonprofit sector is doing. And so I think it's really important for the nonprofit sector to have the benefit of the same tools for the good that they seek to do in the world. Our motto, my business motto, when I reorganized it in the aftermath of the financial crisis in 2008, was finding creative ways to help our clients make the world better. And that connects to your first question. My father was a sort of a progressive Presbyterian minister who believed that heaven is what you make of your life and deeds here on earth. And he essentially got thrown out of the Midwestern church for his opposition to the Vietnam War and his active efforts to integrate his church in this small town. Because he felt that, you don't sit around and wait for heaven, you have to make it here on earth. So there's certainly an influence from him. And when I sought religion in my teens and 20s, I ended up in Theravada because there was no deity. It was just practice. It was just what you do in the world. I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you. Something you just said made me think about, well, I was thinking about something before you said it, when you were talking about your father getting thrown out of the church because of the Vietnam War and integration. And my question, thought, I don't know what it is since our motto is deed before creed,
Yeah.
The question for me is, how do we put that in a social justice um
Yeah.
yeah, because I think everything is social justice. Not everybody thinks so, but I think anything that deals with people is social. So it doesn't matter what, whether it's incarceration, whether it's food shortages, all of that. So I'm just thinking of how we might be able to integrate that deed before creed into a social justice sort of branding platform.
Well, from a brand standpoint, Deed Before Creed is great because it's quite simple and provocative. And it starts to lay out the project. And yes, we live in society. Our responsibility is to pursue social justice if we're going to take the motto Deed Before Creed as a guiding principle. So let me ask the question, does the organization, does the coalition, does this congregation have a set of core values?
That's a good question. I'm not sure we do.
So this would be part of the project, actually, to sort of to set those down, to codify them. With the National Museum of Women in the Arts, for example, one of the first things we did was help them select a set of core values, 3. Champion, to champion women through art. Open, to be open to all people. And fresh, to sort of continually innovate. So they had an innovation value, they had a kind of human value, and then an excellence value. And those 3 principles are used to measure everything that they do. Every exhibition goes through a rubric that says, does this exhibition live up to champion, open, and fresh? Does this program live up to champion, open, and fresh? And this keeps them on track so that those people who come expecting experiences that champion women are open to all and fresh will get what they expect. And this has helped to build their brand substantially. So we need this.
I have one question. I probably has nothing to do with you though. I cannot be there for any of the 2 weekends. And is there any way you're doing that on Zoom?
I think with the right reasons for not being able to be there, we can probably accommodate that. It makes it more complicated for me, but I realize that some people may have physical reasons or other logistical reasons. So,
Well, I have class like at 2 o'clock, and I live in Manhattan, although I'm a member of the Brooklyn Society. So there's no way that I could
yeah.
come and spend as much time as I would like because I would have to get back.
Sounds like it will be hybrid, and we'll get to, I will announce about the workshops later.
Thank you,
But
Fiona.
I think we'll strongly encourage
Yeah.
anyone who is able to come in person to do that.
We don't want it's so much better in person.
Yeah.
So it really, for example, that reason and the reason that you gave me earlier, those are reasons, like those are really good reasons, but for convenience, that shouldn't be the reason. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Bert, and I'm also from Illinois. And the reason I'm not physically there today is because I had my COVID vaccination shot this morning, and I'm experiencing some after effects. So I thought it best to stay home. I have 2 questions. One related a bit to what others have spoken about. How would or should or could your work for us relate to the fact that there are other ethical culture societies in our area, and also that ethical culture societies have a national organization, the American Ethical Union? That's my first question. And my second question, how would your work be impacted by the fact that the election was won by Donald Trump and that he is now the president of our country?
So I'll answer the second one first. We just have to keep going. The work is Gloria Steinem says, you know, progress looks like this, right? And so it feels really like not like you're in a circle, but actually that wheel is progressing. It just feels really frustrating when you're going back, but the going back is inevitable as part of the progress that you make. But over time, if you look at it over a period of 30, 50 years or a human lifetime, you can see the progress. So we're in a regressive moment, but and we just can't get frustrated and give up. As far as the connection to the national brand, I think we want to maintain that connection because people come and go from Brooklyn all the time. So someone who's part of the national brand or what's the name of it? American Ethical Union. Right. Someone who's a follower of the Ethical Union should seek you out when they are in Brooklyn and not feel like they've come to an alien place. So there should be some continuity there. We don't necessarily have to build it based on national work unless national work has been done and it's excellent. I've done a lot of work with the Jewish Federations of North America, for example, and the national work is not there. So, I don't know the status of that, but we can certainly look at it as we consider what our answers need to be to these questions.
And how about the other ethical culture societies in our area?
Well, Manhattan, certainly, yeah. So I'm curious why you chose to be part of Brooklyn as opposed to the one in Manhattan. For those of you who, I've been to both, or I'm familiar with both. But yeah, I think that should be friendly, and but if the work has not been done, we need to do it.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Joseph Vai. I'm from the Washington Ethical Society. We're actually coming in today just to visiting, doing exactly what we were just talking about, seeing the similarities and the differences. It's been very eye-opening and enlightening. It's been a great experience trying to figure out the differences. And so I've actually been trying to start a podcast for our ethical society there. And I'm really coming up against, how do I market this? Like, what is the easy way to put this into the market, right? How do we get the word out effectively using technology? I'm really passionate about that. And I was going to ask you, do you think that ethical culture has a particularly challenging marketing problem inherently? Just because of kind of the stuff that you said earlier about the health organizations having too many things, being too broad, or is there a simple solution for ethical culture to get the word out?
I think there is, both of those things are true. It's difficult for a nuanced philosophy to be articulated in a way that people get outside. But you've got to do the work to figure out how to do that. That is the project. I think that you have a great offer. It's a phenomenal offer. And it could be very attractive, and it's probably a packaging problem and not a product problem. So that's good, right? So that means if we do the work and create a set of tools, you could use them in Washington or somewhere else. So we might want to do a survey to see if anybody's sort of made progress on this. But yeah, so we can share the work we come out with you and see if it's of use.
Thank you.
I, hello,
Go ahead, Vandra.
hello there. So, excellent. Lovely to meet you. I actually worked at Helen Keller International when it had the old I.
Oh, yeah. And the world, yes.
The world was the I, actually. At any rate, this is so exciting, James. I'm really thrilled to hear this. I'm actually the Brooklyn rep to the American Ethical Union.
Oh, okay.
And so have, a little bit of my foot over in all of the societies. Lovely to meet the fella from Wes. And I'm also actually the chair of the Assembly Committee for next year's American Ethical Union Assembly,
Oh, nice.
which will be at the end of July. And so I'm just going to be so excited to hear how, the sort of the creation of the core values, the coming up with the branding thing, like the check for Nike is, you see that check and we just go, okay, let's go. Right. But I mean, however, I'm also really interested to see how we can claim the word ethical.
Yeah.
And to create something, to make ethical sound beautiful and sexy, and as you would say, open and welcoming. But to put it, because, we are in also this other humanist universe, and we could very easily sort of succumb to, and we'll just make ourselves, another humanist.
Well,
Okay, sorry. Thank you very much.
no.
And I'll be there in person.
Oh, great. Thank you. Ethical is probably the center of it. So you have all these things that are packaging around ethical. So Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture, that's a lot. But right, if you were to make that into a kind of typographic brand, ethical would be really big, and all that other stuff would just be little things around it. So that kind of simplification around some salient core idea is the kind of work that needs to be done. Yeah. I mean, you also have a mark, this symbol that is used nationally. Is that used across all of ethical culture?
No,
It's not. Yeah.
there are two marks.
Two, great.
Yeah. So just in case we can't hear Tom, yes, there was a rebranding and there was a new mark developed, right, Tom? And not every society wanted to change, so now you can choose one of two.
Which is the worst possible situation.
One of three would be worse.
Yeah, well, right, or one of 20, which is the case with Jewish Federations of North America. Where
We have several as well. We don't have just three. We have like almost every society does their thing.
But with two main themes.
Yeah.
So every time you add one more thing to a brand, you reduce its effectiveness by 80%. So from 1 to 2 drops its effectiveness from one thing. So from ethical to society ethical drops effectiveness 80%. So its capacity to communicate, its capacity to be heard, to be understood falls dramatically with every addition.
And can I just drop in here to just say something about the American Ethical Union, which is really the union of the societies.
Yeah.
So it's the society. So in a certain sense, the problem is there for this branding is that you've got to have the buy-in of 26 societies. So, and at this point, some of those societies are not absolutely in alignment, not about the core values. Actually, I think many societies are all about, but there are just organizational issues that are at play that are currently, the drama of the American Ethical Union. So but I just absolutely I would just throw that in at the moment so you understand in terms of why there would be dozens of logos.
Yeah.
It was,
And of course, we can't control that. My original thought here was to simply clean up the logo following a pattern that already existed across the societies. But if that doesn't exist, then maybe the job is to do something better. Who knows?
Yeah,
And
so
that's part of the discussion.
just very briefly, James, I was on the AEU branding
Excuse me,
committee.
Tom, is
Yep.
this also about the AU? Because I just wanted
Yeah.
to bring us back here. It's like put on your own oxygen mask first. We're here to talk about Brooklyn, the AU.
Yep.
It's great. Let's put that on the
Yeah,
back.
Fiona, this is very specifically about Brooklyn. I was on the AEU branding committee about 8 years ago. It recommended this three-headed humanist icon as the brand for the AEU. AEU recommended that all societies adopt it, and then Brooklyn never really took it up as a question as to whether we should adopt that or not. And so that's where it got left.
Okay, well, I see Dupre and Rebecca had their hands up. So I guess those will be our last two questions for today.
Thank you. Hello, thank you for this wonderful talk. I just brought this in. We have this outside.
Yep.
And this is broken down, and Tom, thank you, pointed it out to me to talk about how clear it is as opposed to the one, the 10 Commandments that the AEU had. And so can you look at this and maybe see how we're doing? And my okay. And my second question is, it was amazing when you started out uh, 53 Prospect Park West, to let go of that, and how we're going to be moving forward is my question
Right.
to you.
So yeah, this work is good work. This is the kind of thing that a brand needs to do, right? So it needs to be able to sort of concisely articulate to the outside what you stand for as quickly and efficiently as possible. There are certain abstractions left in like an inclusive community focused on social justice and personal growth. That's like the answer to the first question that we need to do. What is the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture? In our workshop, that is our first question. And by the way, I've done about 100 of these with different organizations, and they can never answer that question easily at the outset. And it's the most basic question. Well, what is, Helen Keller International? What is the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture? So that work needs to be done. We need to answer that in a way that when I put it out on the street, somebody say, oh, wait, I want to find out more about that. And also that gives that sentence to everybody in the congregation to be able to sort of say when they're asked that question, well, what is the organization? So yes, you're making very good progress because you have a list of sort of concrete positions there in terms of what you believe. But what you actually have to answer, going back to Drucker's point, is no one buys what you sell, they buy what is of value to them. So if one of these positions is of value to them, then that's going to be effective.
Well, I want this to say on hardware store in our community. If you want this, come to this hardware store. Something basic.
As concrete as that, yes, yes.
So I'll just make sure that this ends up in your hands as the consultant, but Lujaira and I facilitated a series of what we called play shops rather than workshops over the last year, and we ended up with a concise list of our values. It was sort of like a brainstorm. It wasn't curated after the fact, a long list of keywords that everybody liked. It was a pretty dynamic intergenerational process, but short. And then we crafted what would be a vision statement and a mission statement. And I want to sort of like, maybe just the question is vision, mission, and values, how do they interact? And then in the end, yes, it's like one statement everybody can get behind, period, hard stop. But we have this work, and I'd love to see it have efficacy in the work that you bring.
So those things exist sort of separate, that we're not going to work on the vision and mission. So the vision is what your organization seeks to bring into the world. Your mission is how you will do that. And your core values are the rules by which you will go through that process. The work on the core values is often, in even very sophisticated organizations, insufficient. We're working on a project with the National Gallery of Art in DC, and they have 13 core values, which is an absolutely unwieldy set. The best practice is 3, so that everyone can hold them in their head at all times and make decisions using them as the guardrails. So part of the work is to boil that down. So we will work on the values. The vision and mission work that you've done can stand. This shouldn't affect that. Like I said, the questions are, what is the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture? How does it deliver value differently from other organizations that are seeking to engage whoever it is that we're seeking? Like, who is our target member, and what do they value, right? And so what is the intersection between our offer and what that group values? And then what are our core values, and what is the one thing that we want for people to hold in their mind about us? And you only get one. It's like when you add 2 and 3, you're essentially becoming invisible again. And for a brand, invisibility is the sort of the worst scenario. And by the way, all nonprofit brands are weak. You don't have to go through the nonprofit brand to brush your teeth, right? So all nonprofit brands are light touch, glancing interactions that if they're not super clear, they don't exist. It's as if they didn't exist at all.
Wow. Well, we want to exist. And
Yeah.
so for members, Tronvig's going to offer 2 play shops. You've already received, if you're a member, you've received a letter with an invitation already. You're going to receive another one. Please RSVP when you get it. I hope everyone will come. They're going to be on Saturday, February 2nd, and Saturday, February 8th, and Saturday, February 22nd. If you can only come to one play shop, please come to the first one. The second one's going to build on the first, and if you just rock on up to the second one, it's not going to make a lot of sense. So thank you very much for coming today, hearing a little bit about the philosophy behind the Tronvig consultancy. We have asked them to come in and help us with the work as an extension of the organizational development work that we did last year. This is the next step in that process. And we are going to invite up Ben and Dupre, who are going to lead us in a community song. And Pat, I'm not going to keep yapping forever. I trust you to stop the recording.